If you compare beer with bratwurst,
And cheese with wine,
or even whiskey,
with donuts,
then we think you can pair all of these delicious drinks with
murder,
conspiracies
missing persons.
and more.
Drink with us as you feed your craving for true crime and creepy stories. Hey there.
Well. Hello, you.
We meet again.
Indeed we do. It's not like I haven't seen you all day, but we are here in front of our mics, and it's like we're whole new people at this point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Refreshed.
Yeah. We
And ready for adult conversation.
Exactly. We channel in our inner podcasters and are ready to have adult conversations that don't involve our kids.
Correct.
And we desperately need that
Yes.
a lot. Once a week works, though. It's been working.
Yes.
All right. So here we go. On to another podcast.
Yep. And we're back to true crime.
All
Last week, it was kind of like a hokey mystery, conspiracy theory, aliens, Bigfoot. The 2 weeks before that were government
MK.
conspiracies. And so now we're just going true old-fashioned crime. And it feels good.
You know what's funny? When I was walking around the liquor store today, trying to be inspired by all the names of these beers and wines and different, I was just trying to find something that captures the tidbits that you told me.
Yeah.
I couldn't help but like see other beers that I would have picked for like MK Ultra. There was like a couple really good ones.
Don't
like,
start
one
thinking
was,
like that.
I can't help it. Like we might have to go back just for the pairing it with a cool name of a beer. Like one
What
was,
did you see?
Well, one was M2K2.
Oh, I have no idea what that means, but it sounds amazing.
It's a mountain. I think I'm not a climber. I'm not much of a hiker. But I'm pretty sure it's a 14er around here. But how perfect would that have been?
Yeah.
Literally MK, isn't it? Anyway, so.
What did you find? I'm curious because this story, it was a recommendation for somebody who listens, who we actually happen to know.
Yes.
He's
our good friend, Josh.
And the story itself is just very sporadic in terms of like clues I could give you, because it's not a place, it's a time period, but the person has nothing to do really with the time period. So I have no idea what you chose.
Well, you gave me, I think some pretty good things for me.
I said the word gorilla.
Well, yeah. Gorilla,
Hitchhiker.
Across the continent and also intercontinental between a couple. And so I had of course, murderer. I think he said
he's the
sexual assault is in there. I had a lot to like go into. Just
hype him up a little bit, not that we would want to. He is the first known sexual serial killer of the 20th century.
Right.
And he killed in the United States and Canada. So what do Canadians say?
And you said he also the whole United States from like San Francisco all the way to
almost coast to coast.
Coast to coast. So, and you said at some point in the beginning, and hopefully I'm not spoiling anything by throwing this out there, that his nickname was Houdini, I think.
That was one of his nicknames. He was called Houdini, yes, because he was an escape master.
So, with all those, walking around, found a couple, but I just always came back to this. I went from our good local microbrew, not too far from here, from Arvada, Colorado, which I went to school in Arvada and know that place very well. Odyssey Beer Works, and they make a beer called Ghost Drifter.
Oh, perfect. He very much was a drifter.
That's what I figured. I mean,
he found places to rent.
Right. And if I'm learning anything from you telling me all these stories, is that if there is somebody killing in a bunch of different places, they're drifters. They're in and out.
And if they're not getting caught,
they
might as well be a ghost.
Exactly. And if this guy, had a nickname like Houdini and killed all these places, and you've given me some other clues about the story, but I won't go into. I'll let you share that because you're so much better at it than me. And
I don't know. This story came together pretty quick today.
Well, I guarantee it's still better than what I can put together. Because right here, right now, I'm like, barely even getting to our beer and doing it well. Anyway, Ghost Drifter. It's a pale ale.
Okay, liking it already.
So, just a few notes on their notes. They say it's got citrus and floral notes. A hop forward, so it's going to have a bit of a hop in the beginning. It's not your favorite, but it's well balanced. And they also claim, I'm not going to say it is or not, we'll let you decide, clean and easy drinking. And judging on
clean and easy, just the way you like them.
That's not the way I like it. I mean, easy for sure. The ABV is not high, so actually,
alcohol by volume.
I bet you'll like it. It's only 5.5.
Lovely.
Yeah,
right up my alley. And where did you say it was from?
It's from Odyssey Beer Works in Arvada, Cadavra.
No, Arvada, Colorado.
I knew at some point we'd fit a Harry Potter joke.
Oh, not even at some point.
I mean, I don't know how it doesn't happen every episode.
That's all I think about.
For those of you that don't know Katie.
True crime and Harry Potter.
That's
and if it's around Christmas, it's all about Harry Potter.
Yep. Literally was watching Harry Potter
today.
Yeah. Here's yours.
Okay.
Let's crack these guys open. Cheers.
Cheers. Almost Merry Christmas. Or as they say in Harry Potter, Happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas. Not the same ring.
Nope. That is full hop in my mouth.
No, it's
that
not.
Is an IPA flavor.
No, that is not crazy IPA.
What are you trying to pull, Arvada?
That's good.
Arvada.
No, that is like...
Well, the can is cool.
It's very cool.
It's very pirate themed.
Yeah.
Gosh. Well balanced. I don't know about that.
I think it is. It's got very much citrus, floral.
Mm-mm.
Oh.
Maybe I'll get used to it.
Yeah, quit being a baby. You'll get used to it.
Oh, man. All right. It's not so bad.
It's not so bad.
5 sips in, and I don't hate it anymore.
Can't judge a beer on the first sip.
But it is hop forward. Like, it is like, I feel like, I know, on the magazine. I feel like this is how if I were a beer, this would be me. Like, at first, people are like, yeah, I don't know. I really don't like her. And then 5 sips later, she's okay. She's all right.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
I'll handle her.
Yeah,
all right.
No, 100%. I think that would be the case.
Well, a beer called Ghost Drifter is perfectly paired with a story about a man who absolutely traveled the country from town to town looking for signs reading room for rent. And in his wake, he would leave women's bodies stuffed in everyday places like beneath beds or in trunks. This is the story of the Gorilla Strangler. On June 8th, 1927, a Mr. Chandler from Winnipeg, Manitoba, was making the trip back home from Detroit, Michigan. Driving part of this trip along the highway, Mr. Chandler noticed a man walking along the busy road. This man had dark hair beneath a pale hat and darker complected skin beneath a red sweater. Mr. Chandler decided to offer this stranger a ride and would later recall that he seemed pleasant and of a religious type. The stranger would get out of Mr. Chandler's car in Noyes, Minnesota, which is a small town just 1 mile south of the international border. He then proceeded on foot and crossed into Canada. Once in Canada, our dark stranger accepted a ride from a couple. John Hanna and his wife would take him into the center of Winnipeg, where he got out of their vehicle and once again commenced on foot. From here, our stranger would wander into a second-hand clothing store, where he would trade various pieces of men's clothing and be given a blue herringbone coat, a pair of pants, black boots, and $1. Leaving the second-hand shop, our stranger, as he walks through the streets of Winnipeg, spies what he had been looking for, a sign proclaiming, "Room for rent." It will be at this rooming house that our stranger, introducing himself as Mr. Woodcott's.
Woodcott's?
Woodcott's. Mr.
Okay.
Woodcott's.
Just making sure.
I know. I have to say it and then I want to laugh every time.
Just because of what? Because it reminds you of...
Mr. Woodcock?
Yeah. You had to say it just to get your giggles out.
Would rent a small room from Mrs. Catherine Hill, who would also remember our stranger as polite, but of a religious nature. Mr. Woodcott's would explain that he simply was a man working on a building site just across the river. Now, here in Winnipeg, a 14-year-old girl named Lola Cohen was trying to help out her family. Her father was recovering from pneumonia, and the family was in need of any financial assistance that they could get. So Lola decided that she would sell flowers door to door. This is what she was doing when she disappeared. A search for young Lola began and was still underway on June 10th when William Patterson returned home at 6 p.m. from work and noticed that his wife was missing. His 2 sons were set to have a play date that afternoon after school, but his wife had failed to pick up the boys when it was to have ended, despite a neighbor saying that she saw her cleaning around the home that morning. While looking around the home, Mr. Patterson noticed that a suitcase in his bedroom had been moved, and the lock on the case was forced open. Upon closer inspection, Mr. Patterson realized that the valuable jewelry pieces and money from within was gone. Once it was clear something was off, Mr. Patterson would alert the authorities, and then after feeding his sons, would tuck them into bed late that night, telling them that their mama would soon be home. Then, our God-fearing Mr. Patterson got down on his knees in his son's bedroom to pray. According to later testimony, Patterson asked God to direct him to where his wife was. And as he stood, his pant leg caught and disturbed his son's bedspread, which revealed what appeared to be his wife's favorite wool sweater. Reaching under the bed, Patterson discovered the dead body of his wife.
What?
Yes. God says, ask and it will be given to you.
So his pant leg caught on a sweater.
No. He gets down to pray, stands to get up, and his pant leg like brushes the kid's bedspread, revealing what looks like his wife's sweater. So he reaches under the bed to like touch his wife's dead body.
I gotcha. So the bedspread goes down to the floor.
Yeah.
Moved it and
Yes.
sweater. Recognize that thing.
Yes. Well, police would determine that Emily Patterson had been raped and strangled. When her attacker was through with her, he stuffed her body under the child's bed.
Jeez, that's so fucked up.
His son is like asleep on a mattress, and his mom's body is dead beneath it. When's Mama coming home? She already is. Like, it's awful.
Why didn't Mom pick me up? She's dead under your bed. Damn, that's messed up.
In her fist was a bloody clump of hair belonging to the perpetrator. It would be concluded that the attacker also had stolen several pieces of men's clothing. Based on the stolen items, including clothing, Canadian officials believed that Emily's attacker must be a traveler. So they decided to begin searching at various boarding houses. By June 12th, this search effort led them to Miss Catherine Hill's boarding house, and in searching her most recent boarder's room, they would first be greeted with a putrid stench. To Miss Hill, it smelled as though Mr. Woodcott's had left out meat.
Yeah.
To the officers, The smell had a more ominous feel. They would discover the body of Lola Cohen stuffed beneath the bed. It is said that Lola's body was so mangled that police refused to provide the public with many details beyond the facts that she was raped and strangled.
Jeez.
Now, once it was revealed that Mr. Woodcotts was not only the man to rape and kill Emily Patterson, but also to do the same to young Lola Cohen's.
How old was Lola?
14?
Lola? 14?
14. It wasn't just the entire Royal Mounted Police who wanted justice. It seemed as though every law-abiding citizen in the small town wanted to find the man who had committed these atrocious crimes. A $1,500 reward was put up for information on a possible traveler in the area around the time of the two attacks. This reward resulted in a call from Mr. John Hanna, who provided the description of the man that he and his wife had driven into Winnipeg days earlier.
Oh.
This description was blasted out to local departments, and constables in Killarney, Manitoba, Killarney, I don't know, it's a place in Canada, arrested a man who fit the bill, just 20 kilometers from the South Dakota border. Virgil Wilson, as he claimed, was very cooperative as he was taken into custody by the Killarney, Manitoba police. He was taken to the jail there, and he was so cooperative that the constables began to question whether or not they were arresting the right man. Ignoring this doubt, the man claiming to be Virgil was put in a century-old cell where he calmly lay down on the straw mattress, which sat atop the iron bed frame which hung from the wall. Now, the constable who put Wilson into the cell needed to send a telegraph to Winnipeg, notifying them that they possibly could have their man in custody. After sending the telegraph, this constable would buy a cigar and a newspaper. He was shocked to find the cell door open and the prisoner completely gone.
All right. So we got our first Houdini moment.
Yes. See, at some point, our prisoner found a piece of wire, picked the double lock, and had snuck out of the jail completely unnoticed. You see, the man who called himself Virgil Wilson was not actually Virgil Wilson. And if the Killarney police had known who they actually had in their cell, I don't think they would have left him alone, even for 1 minute. So we have to go back. Earl Leonard Farrell was born on March 12th, 1987 in San Francisco. Both of his parents would die due to syphilis before he reached the age of 2. Earl, orphaned, was surrendered to his maternal grandparents, Lars and Jenny Nelson. There he lived with 2 other children, his aunt and uncle, respectively ages 10 and 8 years old.
Oh, so
yeah.
his grandparents have kids.
His mom's siblings.
Yeah, but they're like
much younger. But this is 18.
Yeah, right.
1987? No, it's 1887.
Probably had their first kid at like 15,
if I said 1987,
16.
that's incorrect. It's 1887.
You might have said 19.
I think so, but it's the 18.
I was picturing
1887. No.
Well, and you can't tell when you say, like the Royal Mounted Police because they still call them
because that's Canada.
And it's like, you guys can't come up with something cooler like LAPD?
I think Royal Mounted Police is way cooler than the LAPD. Are you kidding?
I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm American. I'd be way more scared of well, maybe not anymore, but back in the day, LAPD.
Well, I didn't have
Bad
much
boys.
respect for the Royal Mounted Police until I researched the story. At least
No, I'm not.
100+ years ago, they could do things right. Now I
Yeah.
think they're a little soft on crime. Go Canada. But
It's probably not their choice. It's probably what they're told to do.
yeah, probably. Now, it seemed like one of his grandparents' first orders of business was to change his name to match theirs. So he became Earl Leonard Nelson. It was in this very devout Pentecostal home where Earl was taught Puritan beliefs, including the notion that sex was dirty and that hellfire and damnation awaited all sinners. Earl's grandparents sought to make him quiet and submissive, but despite their efforts, Earl was becoming something else altogether. His grandmother would say that Earl would leave for school in the mornings, properly dressed, and when he returned home in the afternoons, he would return in an outfit that was unkempt, even shredded at times.
Getting in fights at school?
I don't know. Young Earl would be described as, quote unquote, a daydreamer and, quote unquote, a compulsive masturbator. Which I wonder if those two things go hand in hand.
Come on, he's just a regular teenage boy, and and he's creative. He's probably got I don't know, ADHD, super bad.
I like the way you say teenage boy. At age 7.
Oh gosh, chronic masturbator.
Stop laughing. Earl was expelled from Agaz's primary school due to odd and morbid behavior. Then at age 10, while cycling, Earl collided with a streetcar and would suffer a traumatic brain injury.
Ooh.
After spending 6 days in a coma, Earl awoke and would forever complain of headaches and memory loss. In addition to those symptoms, this brain injury brought on even more erratic behavior. Earl began speaking to people who weren't actually there. He would quote the Bible compulsively and was caught many times trying to watch women, including women in his own family, undress. By the time Earl was a young teen, it was not uncommon for him to visit brothels and bars in the San Francisco Barbary Coast Red Light District. As he grew, Earl would grow quite strong, stocky yet formidable, being described as having big hands and oddly long arms. His first brush with law enforcement came when he was 18 years old in 1915, after he broke into a cabin he believed was abandoned. But this breaking and entering resulted in a 2-year San Quentin sentence. Earl would be paroled the next year, but it wouldn't be long till he found himself on the wrong side of the law yet again. Just 6 months after his release, Earl was sentenced. He was arrested in Stockton, California for petty larceny and later in Los Angeles for burglary. In 1917, Earl got out of jail, realized he needed some money, so he came up with a scheme. At first, he enlisted in the military. He received a few checks, and then he deserted. Following this first enlistment and desertion, Earl did it over and over and over.
Oh my gosh.
With different branches using different names.
Oh, he found a loophole. This is the United States, right? Mm-hmm. But he's not.
San Fran right now.
I guess he's making people up that he is that he's
completely
playing.
Different people.
It doesn't matter if he's a citizen, but he's technically a Canadian, right? Like,
no, he's gonna travel to Canada.
Oh, that's right.
We went back in time.
Yeah,
we made like time traveling noise.
Or like some chimes as you go.
Yeah.
Now let's go back.
Yes, we'll get chimes.
Or we could do Wayne's World. They do that. You have never watched it. Why am I?
I don't know why you're even saying these things to me.
They
use time turners in Harry Potter, and they don't have sound. Now,
that doesn't do us any good.
In 1918, while enlisted in the U.S. Navy, Earl was committed to the Napa State Mental Hospital because of his odd and erratic behavior. One naval psychologist, geez Louise, this beer,
I was going to say,
described Earl as follows, quote, living in a constitutional psychotic state, end quote.
Well, it sounds like he got, um, brain damage, obviously, from the crash, but I'm pretty sure a lot of schizophrenia starts after some traumatic brain
Interesting.
injury.
In none of my research was he ever officially diagnosed. Now, this is like
Well,
early
yeah,
1900s where
Yeah.
things like that weren't.
No, it's the
No.
mentally ill weren't
Yeah.
as, you just kind of like, we'll put up with them.
Now,
Put them all in one place.
yes. Now, Earl will escape from this facility 3 times before being discharged from the Navy. These escapes would earn him his first nickname, Houdini. Now, living as Evan Lewis Fuller, Earl got a job as a janitor at St. Mary's Hospital in 1919, where he married 60-year-old Mary Martin. This marriage lasted all of 6 months before Mary claimed that Evan made her life a quote-unquote living hell, and they separated.
Did he steal money from her?
She actually just complained of like psychotic rages, jealousy, things like that.
Huh. Yeah. Okay.
Then, in May 1921, Earl is going to, under the guise of being a plumber, make his way into a residence and attempt to sexually assault a 12-year-old girl named Mary Summers.
Gross.
But when Mary screamed, Earl fled. He would later be captured. A few hours passed riding on a trolley.
Okay.
It was after that that Earl would again be readmitted to the Napa State Mental Hospital. This time around, he would only manage to escape twice before he was discharged.
They're like, he's just gonna leave anyway, just to start
He's
discharge
somewhat
him.
better. No.
Yeah, they just want to get rid of him. Like, this guy is just making
improved.
everyone life a living hell. Let society deal with him.
Yes.
Like, his
Well,
consequences will come.
and society does deal with him. I guess he deals with society, maybe?
Yeah. Eventually, I hope. I don't know, but
All right.
I
Now-
know a lot more is to come.
Yes. Now, some people believe Nelson's killing spree began almost immediately after his discharge. There are 3 murdered women in Philadelphia in 1925, all killed over a 3-week period of time, which all match Earl's eventual killing MO. Mrs. Ola McCoy, Mrs. Mary Murray, and Mrs. Lillian Weiner.
Viner. Well, given his MO, we'll go with Viner. And that is sexual assault, strangulation.
I'm going to tell you.
Till death. Right?
So all of these women were found murdered.
Mangled.
They all fought for their lives. They were sexually assaulted after death.
Oh.
Their wrists had been bound with strips of cloth using complicated sailor's knots, and clothing had been stolen from each of their homes, later to be found at pawn shops. Now, I think these 3 were never officially tied to Earl Nelson, despite the fact that Earl Nelson was believed to be in Philadelphia at the time, because not every single detail of their deaths are consistent with the following instances of murder.
Which are tied.
Yes.
Okay.
So in 1926, Nelson traveled back to San Francisco, this time as Roger Wilson. It is there that his official killing spree began. Let's discuss his first burst of murders in California. 60-year-old Clara Newman was found strangled, raped after death, and left in a vacant apartment in one of her Pierce Street boarding houses on February 20th, 1926. Laura Beale was found dead, strangled in San Jose on March 2nd. Then, on June 10th, Lillian St. Mary was found deceased by strangulation. She also was raped after death. Exactly 2 weeks later, Ollie Russell, who was 53, was strangled and left in one of her boarding houses.
What's the location of these? Are they
This is California.
all California?
Mary Nisbet was found by her husband in the bathroom of a vacant apartment. She had been strangled and raped. Witnesses would tell police that they had seen a smiling stranger, a large man, outside of the home prior to her murder. From these descriptions, several names would be given to our perpetrator: Dark Strangler, Gorilla Man, and Gorilla Killer. The name Earl Nelson never came up.
Interesting.
It's those long arms, big hands.
I'm guessing there's pictures out there.
I've only seen his face.
We'll post his face on our Instagram. Before you can even listen to, or I guess at the moment you can listen to this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm trying to picture this guy. Do
his parents, I can't remember if it was mom or his dad, but one of his parents is Spanish, the other one is English. So that's where he gets his dark complexion. Yeah. In his picture, his hair is dark and seems a little bit textured, a little bit thick. Yeah. And it's just kind of all over the place.
That's weird. That's what I was kind of imagining. It was kind of a sort of Spanish looking dude. Oh, man.
Only in the early 1900s could you call. Let me tell you, when I was reading about him, I was like, that sounds like Jason.
That's like the same blunts I have.
However, it like boggles my mind that they can call him a gorilla man because of his like stocky, lurking, giant arms. Like that wouldn't fly today. You couldn't call some man a gorilla man. It just wouldn't work.
No, not for a Nick. I don't know. I mean,
his hands must have been massive though. If they're noticing them just from seeing him outside the home.
That's what I'm saying. Like if it was uncharacteristic for just like regular humans, you kind of recognize those things. Like that dude's got long arms, because we all have very our bodies are geometrically like the same,
consistent.
Yeah. Like your eyes are actually in the middle of your head, and then your nose is in the middle below that, and then your mouth is in the middle below your nose and your chin. And then your arms should be the exact length of your body, which actually mine aren't. I have longer wingspan than my brother, who is 4 inches taller than me. It's really weird. Yeah. But
so wait, this guy had the same genetics as you. He had uncharacteristically long arms, and you have uncharacteristically long arms.
Oddly big hands. I have bigger hands than my dad, who is 4 inches taller than me, and my brother is 4 inches taller than me.
I'm a little concerned.
My hands aren't that big, though. I mean, they're. I barely.
His thumbs are humongous. They are the longest thumbs I have ever seen in my entire life. It's absurd. They are as long as my middle finger.
Kind of ape-like, aren't they?
Like a gorilla, perhaps.
I wish I had big old mittens like that. Knock you out.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway.
I'm sitting next to the gorilla killer.
I'm just saying something like that, if it's especially oddly big. Yeah, I don't know. You could get away with it today, maybe. I don't think we really name our serial killers a whole lot anymore.
We don't even know about serial killers anymore.
Oh, we
do, but if they get, I mean, here's the deal. We don't have bad serial killers in terms of skill because of all the cameras and like you're going to get caught. So they're only really, really good serial killers. Yeah. And I think we're too scared to name them.
And we only know about them because of like some documentary like dove into all the killings along this highway, and it must be the same person, but they still don't know who it is. And
we should get back to that. We should start naming serial killers. I mean, Golden State was the most recent serial killer. He has a name.
Wasn't that back in like 80s?
No, he was killing in the 80s, but we caught him maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
BTK was in our lifetime. He has a cool nickname. I actually think you're incorrect. We do name serial killers.
But they named the two you just said, they named back in the 80s.
We named them after, though. After No,
BTK was like quick. Was that early 90s?
No,
80? No, I think
late
it was
90s, early 2000s he was caught.
I know, but when he started,
yeah,
he got that nickname.
Yep.
Not long after.
Well,
anyway,
we are veering.
we're due a
off
good
course.
serial killer.
We do need a good serial killer. Hopefully not one who's half Spanish, half English with large wingspan.
No, I don't have the guts to do anything like that.
Okay.
Or the
back
that
to
stuff
our
grosses me
gorilla
out.
killer. So in October of 1926, Earl Nelson would venture up to Portland, Oregon. Over the course of 3 days, he would murder 3 more women.
Jeez.
On October 19th, 35-year-old landlady Beta Withers was strangled and raped after her death. Her body was stuffed into a steamer trunk, placed in the attic of her home, where her son would discover it later.
Did you say a steamer trunk? What's a steamer?
That's a really good question.
You had too much to go over. Like, what's a steamer?
Then on the 20th, I have a picture of a steamer trunk in my head. I couldn't describe it to you, but it's there, and we are going to move forward.
Because you just made it up.
No, I have a steamer trunk. It's what I keep all my memorabilia in.
Oh.
That's a steamer trunk.
You sure?
Yes, no. Then on the 20th, 59-year-old Virginia Grant was murdered, and her body would be discarded beneath basement floorboards. On October 21st, Mabel Fluke, a very wealthy landlady, was reported to have disappeared from her home, but she would later be found strangled in her own attic.
The one thing that's blowing my mind with everything you've said in the past, I don't know, 4 minutes, everybody's found.
Yeah.
He's not even trying
he kind of is, but he's doing it in places where once the woman is like, oh, she's missing, that's exactly where they're going to search for her.
Yeah,
he's just buying himself
trying.
time.
Yeah, he's a drifter, just drifting away and
killing ladies, moving on,
drifting on, and he's like, this is the life for me.
Yeah. Now, once again, back in San Francisco, Earl Nelson will be seen by our next victim's friends. 56-year-old Anna Edmonds was found raped and murdered on November 18th, and her friends will tell police that a strange and large man was seen in the parlor of her home, claiming to be interested in buying a piece of property that was for sale. These descriptions match those of the gorilla killer. And do you know what I can't stop thinking of every time I say gorilla killer? The Thriller in Manila. So I'm going to tie this serial killer with a boxing bout between Muhammad Ali and Frazier. Because it's the illa rhyming. That just like...
Yeah. The Thriller in Manila.
The Thriller in Manila.
You
the
would
gorilla
do that.
killer.
You've got that growing up with boxing. And I didn't think of it once.
No, I could not. Every time I said gorilla killer, I was like, oh, the Thriller. We should watch that documentary.
Gorilla killer.
And then you probably want to like write a rap verse.
Yeah. But you should. I was more thinking, since you're thinking that, instead of saying gorilla killer, from now on you should say gorilla killer.
Okay. Gorilla killer.
Just kidding. You don't have to do that. But from what you just said, I mean, you might as well.
All right. Well,
Thriller in Manila.
The Thriller in Manila. Now,
we're talking about the gorilla killer.
Oh, I wish I could like just go into a verse of rap.
I wish I was skilled like that too. We
no,
could.
I'm literally wearing a
sweatshirt
that has Christmas trees on it.
We could ask our buddy Mikey G to write us a rap for that.
Yes.
Give us a few bars for this, bud.
Please.
As an intro.
And back to the story. The next day, the 19th of November, a 28-year-old pregnant woman will be attacked in Burlingame, California, while showing a home to Nelson. Mrs. H.C. Murray is going to survive the attack and is able to give officials a description. She would say that her attacker was 5 feet 8 inches tall, well-dressed, well-spoken, stocky, and had very, very large hands.
All right. So what's crazy is like 3 times now when we got distracted by stupid rabbit holes or squirrels.
No, those are squirrels.
Those
Rabbit
squirrels.
holes are worth
Yeah.
diving into. Squirrels are a complete waste of time.
And there we go, another squirrel. I was going to ask you, because you keep describing not you, everybody's testimony keeps describing, well, there's this large man, and I'm like, well, what's large?
His hands.
But
He's
big, like, what are they seeing as big? And then my one question was, how tall is he?
He's short.
And you haven't, as far as I know, my brain doesn't quite take in everything, but I don't think you've said how tall he was until right now. And 5'8"?
He's short. He's stocky.
Well, 5'8" isn't short. 5'8" is an average man's size. I'm 5'10", so 5'8" is the average man's size. So it's not like he's giant. He's just a regular man, unless he is really just in good shape, broad shoulders.
Everything I read, he was like super strong, like
So,
really, really strong.
yeah.
So even if he's not super, super tall, average,
Yeah.
I feel like he's probably just solid.
So what I'm imagining in my head is, you see those old pictures of like World's Strongest Man, like back in this time,
Yeah.
early 1900s, compared to World's Strongest Man now is way different. Like the World's Strongest Man then is kind of, I don't know, he doesn't look super special. Like definitely muscular,
Right.
but not like anybody that you can't just walk into Planet Fitness or I was going to say Lifetime. Yeah, that is national. Lifetime Fitness, and not see like 20 dudes.
Why
that
don't you say
look
Bally's
bigger.
Total Fitness?
I don't think we have any Bally's left in Colorado. I was going to say 24-hour fitness, but I'm
There's
pretty
none of
sure they
those.
are out.
No, I think I'm going to, while I keep talking, I think you should look up a picture of him.
Okay.
Because the way you're describing him, I feel like his head should be big. He should have really broad shoulders. He really doesn't. I think
But that's what I'm saying is, now that you've said
look
what
at
you
this
said,
picture.
now I'm not seeing like
All
this
right.
big dude. But apparently back then, maybe all the dudes were small, and like that's what you get.
All right, look at his picture, and I'm going to keep talking.
Genetically modified food, makes us all a whole lot bigger.
Gen Mods. Next, Florence Monks and Blanche Myers are both going to be found murdered in Seattle and Portland, respectively. Finally, after so many similar murders, police along the West Coast began issuing warnings to women, especially those with rooms to rent. So Earl Nelson felt that he needed to move on. After giving away pieces of Florence Monk's jewelry to women in the boarding house where he was staying, Earl Nelson headed east. From December 23rd to December 28th, Nelson will murder 3 more women and an 8-month-old baby. In Council Bluffs, Iowa, 41-year-old Almina Bernard was raped and murdered. On the 27th, in Kansas City, Missouri, 23-year-old Bonnie Pace was murdered and strangled. Why would I say murdered and strangled? She was murdered via strangulation. She was murdered, and then she was strangled and died.
I'm sure it's happened before. I'm sure it's very weird for that coroner to put.
No, she was murdered.
Everybody's
going to
think this is a typo.
Okay.
But this person was strangled.
I'm just going to
after
say
they
this
were
now
murdered.
as a disclaimer, and then also credit for me. I had 0 research done, 0 script written, and Jason was like, yeah, we should probably record today. And this is what I have been doing. So the fact that that's the one error I have found so far, good job me.
Oh, that's great.
Thank you.
Also, like,
He's average,
We-
right?
okay. Well, I was gonna say I knew you could do it. You also, I know you put a lot of work in this because you're on every episode. You're working on it all the time. To actually see you do it in one
All
day,
day long.
literally every single minute. And, you know, like you had stuff you wanted to do. And I was like, why don't you take a break and go do that? And you're like, nope, if I do that, we won't record. And look, I think it's important that the 2 people that listen to us get an episode.
We had somebody outside the country listen, Jason. So whoever you are, gracias.
She loves that stat.
I bet they were in Australia. Thank you, mate.
Thank you, mate.
Okay.
All right. Back to Gorilla Man Strangler case, which I just read right here. I didn't just make that up. Anyway, I'm looking at the pictures. We will have pictures on our Instagram. If you're not following that, go there, follow that.
Perfectly paired with podcasts.
Yeah, it's got some good stuff, but it's about to have a whole lot more because we're diving into this. And we're finally, I know I've said this so many freaking episodes. I think we have finally figured out.
We have.
Yes, we have. Stupid videos.
All
Okay.
right. Do you have a comment about the way he looks?
I do.
Because we are losing momentum and we're near the end.
Oh, perfect. So yeah, he looks, I guess I could see him being like a strong looking dude. I mean, kind of looks like a mafia guy.
He absolutely looks like a mafia guy.
Yeah. There's like a picture of him holding his hands up close to his face. Did you see that?
Yes.
Yeah, he's got some big mitts.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's probably a little bit of camera optical illusion on that, but at the same time, yeah, his hands are abnormally large, for sure. But yeah, I could see, we'll put pictures up, but I could see that, you know, people being like, oh yeah, he was a big man.
All right.
But then you see him getting carried out of the court, and he's smaller than both the detectives carrying him out. I don't know. Interesting. Okay.
One day later, on the 28th, 28-year-old Jermaine Herpin was strangled and raped. This was followed by the strangulation of her 8-month-old son using a diaper. Nelson, claiming to be Charles Harrison, would kill 5 more victims from April 1927 to June 1927 in the United States. Mary McConnell, Jenny Randolph, Fannie Mae, Maureen Atorthy, Mary Cecilia Sietsma were all killed in places like Philadelphia, Buffalo, Detroit, and Chicago.
Holy crap.
All with similar details: strangulation, rape, and missing items, plus descriptions of a stocky killer with oddly large hands.
What's our kill count at this point?
I think 22.
Oh my goodness.
No, it would have been 20. It was the men's clothing taken from Mary Cecilia Sietsma's home that are the items that our dark stranger traded in at the second-hand store in Winnipeg, Canada, before brutally murdering our first and second victims, Lola Cohen and Emily Patterson. And when I say first and second, I mean the ones that I have addressed in this podcast.
Yeah, the ones at the beginning.
Yes. So this clearly brings us back to our escaped Virgil Wilson, or should I call him Earl Leonard Nelson. After escaping the Killarney police cell, he found himself a barn where he stayed the night. Inside the barn, he found a sweater and a pair of old hockey skates. Needing new shoes, our serial killer, Nelson removed the blades and left the next morning wearing a moth-eaten sweater and makeshift skate shoes. As he left the barn, he chatted friendly with the farmer and confidently bummed a few smokes from him on his way out.
So he's on the farmer's property.
In his barn, stole his sweater and ruined his skates in Canada, which
Let's
I
just
think
say-
is a crime.
'Cause we don't have hockey skates. You might as well steal the guy's car. and
Yeah.
be better off than hockey skates. But we don't know like where he chatted it up with the farmer. Regardless.
I think we do know.
Oh, really?
So there are two tellings of this situation.
Uh-huh.
Now, the first one, some sources say that despite Nelson's unshakable confidence, the farmer was incredibly leery, this bear, and immediately called authorities, after which Nelson was arrested before making it very much further down the road away from the barn. So it's literally like he's walking out, stretching in his new sweater. His stupid shoes are probably like messing up the dirt.
Clunk.
And this farmer is out like taking care of business, just watching this strange man leave his barn. And he's like, hey, dude,
Hey, thanks for the let me stay.
do you have any
and
cigarettes?
Appreciate the sweater. And oh, by the way,
We have the same size shoe.
yeah, totally
Not the same size hands.
totally fucked up your skates.
You want to test them?
Don't worry about that. You'll find some new ones.
Can I have some cigarettes?
I left your blades in there for you though.
So that's the first
have-
telling of the story.
Can I bum a smoke? real
A couple,
fast?
please. But another source says this. Nelson's going to leave the barn. He's going to board a train. And to Nelson's own dismay, is going to find that the train he was currently on was actually transporting members of Winnipeg's own police force. Either way, Earl Leonard Nelson will be officially taken into custody for the last time. Now,
Those. Sorry, I just had a lot of beer, but I had something to say. Those two tellings are so different.
so different.
Like, there's no way that either of them is exactly how I happened.
No, and I'm telling you, like I had, and I'm hoping what I've provided for everybody is the closest to the truth. Every source I read was a little bit different from the last one. It was insane to me. But I guess it's removed 100+ years.
Yeah. No,
I don't
for
know.
sure. You won't have, probably the exact. It's all, a lot of it's word of mouth. Well, I guess all of it is. But it's still kind of fun to just imagine this dude just coming out of the barn, just
There was,
or if he wasn't even like, say the farmer didn't see him coming out of the barn or anything, but he's like he's tilling on something in the garden. This dude just walks up to him and starts chatting him up. And he's like, what are you, like, all he's thinking is like, what are you doing on my property? But at the same time, I don't know. You got me engaged. Yeah, here's a smoke.
hey, is that my sweater?
And as he leaves, he starts like,
Are those my skates?
hold on. I swear that's my. Those are not regular shoes. Those are skates. And then he goes into his barn. He's like, son of a bitch. I'm calling the police.
There was a Canadian news article which just kind of expounded upon Nelson's charisma and his confidence and his just complete and total lack of like any acknowledgement that he would ever be caught.
That's
Like it was almost like a godlike
Yeah.
approach. And I mean, if you're taking the lives of women because you can, I mean, some level you think that's where you are.
using. It seems like he's using the murder than rape as like that's his sexual life. Like that's how he gets his rocks off. Is those actions. Like he's not gonna. It's too much work to try. He had that wife before.
And she wasn't putting up with any of
and
his garbage. 6
yeah,
months later,
and
she's like, see ya.
He was like, you know what? I could do it this way, and nobody says anything. I'm good. I'll move on to the next town.
And I think
the
it's
next
very
one.
interesting that some women he rapes before they're dead and some women he rapes after, which to me tells me like the rape is the end goal.
Yeah.
And if he can do it before the woman's dead, great.
Yeah.
But if not, he absolutely is going to accomplish that goal before moving on.
Yeah, I think it was all a way for him to get his, and he's mentally insane. And so he's got his justification there, and I mean, maybe that confidence also comes with not even fully knowing what he's doing is totally wrong, or he knows and
No, you sound like his defense attorney. Is gross. Yeah.
Look, I'm just playing.
Is it because you guys are related?
Just playing devil's advocate. That's all. And if he's schizophrenic, there could be that other side of him saying, "Nope,
Okay.
nope, you're good, you're good." Anyway, let's go on. I want to see how
Canadian
it happens.
officials send Nelson's photos to departments across the United States, only to receive in return positive identifications from California and Illinois for crimes committed in those states. Nelson would continually say that he, in fact, was Virgil Wilson, but fingerprint records from California would prove him utterly wrong. He was Earl Leonard Nelson. At one moment, Nelson would admit to his crimes very early on. He then recanted, and then never again would he admit any guilt. Within 4 weeks of the capture, Nelson had been indicted for crimes in San Francisco, Portland, Detroit, Philadelphia, and Buffalo.
Jeez.
In total, Nelson would be tied to at least 22 murders officially, but would only stand trial for 2, Lola Cohen and Emily Patterson. Nelson's trial began on November 1st, 1927. His ex-wife would testify, as well as countless witnesses, all tying Nelson to the boarding houses of victims, pawn shops where stolen items were pawned, even to specific pieces of stolen property. On November 15, the jury deliberated for all of 40 minutes and returned with a guilty verdict on both murder charges. Nelson was then sentenced to death. On January 13th, 1928, from November the previous year, Earl Leonard Nelson, the Dark Strangler, or the Gorilla Strangler, which is the last name bestowed upon Nelson by the Manitoba Free Press, was executed via hanging at 7:30 a.m. in Winnipeg, Canada. Now, many people believe that when a person is hung to death, it's an instantaneous death when a person's neck is broken. They believe the spinal cord separating from the brain stem brings about this instant death. Those people are wrong. According to the Delaware Hanging Protocol, which is largely considered to be the how-to manual for execution by hanging.
Good old Delaware providing us with that handbook.
I would have guessed Florida or Texas. The actual cause of death when someone is hung is strangulation. See, cervical dislocation only creates unconsciousness. Then, in a matter of minutes, as the rope around the neck blocks the windpipe, the condemned dies due to lack of oxygen in their brain. Now, hanging is a science. If the rope is too long, the condemned will fall through the trapdoor with too great a force, and their head will literally be pulled off. Now, this is too close to being drawn and quartered, which is considered cruel and unusual punishment in both the United States and Canada.
You can't go into a lot of these details and expect me not to ask some questions or say something.
Then ask.
So if the rope is too long,
the force is too great and the head pops off.
But does it actually come off the body, or
yes.
is it separation and bones and it stays?
Wait. Hold on.
So you're
Dave, this is for you. Hold on.
You can't.
Pops right off. Just like that.
We're talking about decapitation and you pop your cheek.
That's what happens. But that's considered cruel and unusual punishment in the United States, and there's a similar law in Canada at the time. So his rope was not too long.
So what's funny is, like...
Don't you want to know what happens if the rope's too short?
I do. But it almost sounds like it's not cruel and unusual punishment, it's actually too easy to go out that way.
Oh, I think it's cruel and unusual to have your head ripped from your body.
How much do you think you feel of that, though? It's like a split second.
No,
like,
your head.
Rip.
No, if your head gets cut off, you remain conscious for like 8 seconds.
Oh, no kidding.
Seriously.
Oh.
No.
Okay.
If the rope is too short, you totally made this funny, and now I can't do it serious. Now, if the rope is too short, the condemned is not rendered unconscious. So they just hang there, gasping, flailing about, retching until they die.
That's what I
This
think
too
of
is considered cruel and unusual.
Yeah, like if the neck doesn't break when they go,
All right.
they struggle through it all. But you're saying that
If it's too long and the force is too great, the
but
head
if it's a perfect amount,
wait, pops right off.
you can't do that just with your mouth.
I can't. Oh, I can't.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
So, all right. So the rope's the right length.
Yeah.
It breaks the neck, knocks you unconscious. Actually, doesn't kill you.
No.
And then you strangle to death.
Correct.
And that takes a little bit because you don't just
A few
strangle
minutes, yeah.
to death.
Mm-hmm.
My guess is you come back in consciousness.
I don't think you actually ever do. I think once your bones in your neck are separated from your brainstem, I don't think you come back into consciousness.
How do they know, though? Because if your bones are
Science,
separated in your
Jace.
neck, you're paralyzed.
Yeah, but it doesn't kill you. Paralyzed people don't die.
I know. But usually you got a bag over your face, and
Why do paralyzed people have a bag over their face?
they usually do in the movies.
You mean people who get their heads cut off?
No, when they hang.
Oh, hanging victims. We've come back around. Jess, we've come back around. That's for you. I got what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes, people who are hung are normally.
Did you think I went on to
I thought you were talking about
guillotine?
people.
Oh, paralyzed people.
I just didn't understand why they had bags over their heads.
No. No.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. That was a squirrel. No. I'm talking about hanging people. They have back. How do they know like they aren't coming back to life?
They just
anyway,
know.
You don't
Delaware
know, obviously.
knows. Delaware
knows. That question. Delaware knows, apparently.
We're gonna try this from the top and with a note of seriousness. Are you ready? Now, hanging is a science. If the rope is too long, the condemned will fall straight through the trapdoor with too great a force, and their head will literally be pulled off their body. This is too close to being drawn and quartered, which is considered cruel and unusual punishment in both the United States and Canada. Now, if the rope is too short, the condemned is not rendered unconscious, so they just hang there, gasping, flailing about, and retching until they die. This, too, is considered cruel and unusual. So it was. Earl Nelson was executed, hung in the most humane way possible. But there is a sense of irony, maybe even poetic justice, to know that this man who preyed upon these women, willing to welcome strangers into their homes, giving them a room where they could sleep safe and sound, would die in like manner to them. There might be some comfort knowing that, like his victims, this guerrilla strangler spent his last moments alive on earth just like them, with a brain starving, crying out for oxygen, which would never come